Hello and welcome back to Space Engineers. In today's video, we're doing something slightly different, and as we're going to be looking at a world, a monorail world, but instead of me just panning the camera around everything, I thought we'd just go around on foot and have a little mosey around. So this, which I'm currently standing on, and which is the entire world, is HullTec's Monorail Testworld, which well starts off on this section right here, which features a small land vehicle, a small base, it's got all the stuff you need for survival mode. Then in the background there you can see one of two trains and a massive rail track that goes to the left and all the way to the right. We've got three different stops to go through. We've got one in a little cave, then we've got one further on the left hand side, then we've got another base on the very right hand side which you might be able to make out sitting in the distance. So grabbing hold of my character, this is what we're first greeted with when we spawn into the world. We've got a lovely flat platform with some conveyors in the floor. These conveyors are for your land vehicles to come and dock up to, and well, load themselves up, transport all the goods to wherever they need to go. And the one we start off with is a massive hydrogen transport vehicle, where you can see here we've got one hell of a lot of tanks, all fully filled up and ready to go. So it's just a standard little truck to drive around, and is a little bit of fun to play around with. But we're going to ignore that, because we're going to go into the main building. So over here we've got ourselves a large hangar bay, or even a large vehicle bay. You store any old vehicles inside, a lovely hangar bay door on front of it to seal them inside. We're just going to ignore that, and then come around to this section, which is your small command base, which has everything you need to survive in survival mode. So walking through here, we've got a double door for an airlock, so just going to close both of them up, and this is what we're greeted with. So we've got a bunch of LCD screens sitting in the background with a programmable block, a medical bay to respawn on and change your outfit. We see some batteries lining the wall, a handy little button to actually switch off the batteries if we don't need it, another programmable block where we can come all the way up to this. Actually go and check this, so editing this, we've got nothing going on. So you want to, you could add the auto door and airlock script on there to save you from having to close the doors manually. If you come into this one, this should be the automatic LCD screens, and yes it is, that's what's controlling all the stuff above there. You put the turn around, we've then got a little seat, which is going to be to control a few things about this small little platform, where we've got our hydrogen tanks, our O2 generators, and our oxygen tanks who stockpile on and off. That's how we're going to pull all the stuff out of our transport vehicle into the base, then go across over to the land vehicle to transport it where it needs to go, or even in the reverse order. There's a nuclear reactor to give it a bit of power, and down to there to turn it on and off if you want to do that. The rest of the room is just a nice big area where you can decorate it if you have access to mods or DLC packs, depending on what you want to do. But here we go, here's the doorway, a double door once again that takes us to the garage that we just saw. We've got three connectors in the floor, and we've got some air vents in there to make sure we can pump this area full of oxygen or suck it out, depending on what you want to do. But here's all of our O2 generators where we've got one hell of a lot of stuff in here. So you have a bunch of vehicles to mine up ice, you can bring it over to the station, refine it up, then drop it into the vehicle to transport it where it needs to go. And what is that in the distance? Oh, that's probably going to be a loot pod, so I've got to turn that off. Yes, that's that for this base. We can see the lovely rail track going over into the distance, a couple of wind turbines to help power the track. We've got to walk around this side, so past the doorway where we came in first of all, and ignoring that button panel, come past the glass that has our control seat. Here's all of our oxygen tanks, there's our large cargo containers, then in the back there's our large hydrogen tanks to store all the stuff inside. And of course, there's some more O2 generators, just in case you don't have enough. Go and ignore this, come all the way around, and start to work our way up to the rail tracks. So all the way up to here, we've got ourselves window blocks on both sides, you can't accidentally fall off this, very good for health and safety. And walking all the way up, and of course looking down at our base, there's the solar panel, all on the hinge so it can actually track the sunlight. And there we go, that's how it's going to go all the way across, over to the hydrogen tanks, into the main base, and a connector on top, so if you do have a transport ship, you can always dock up to that, rather than using land vehicles. But here is our lovely train, which is going to be how we're going to transport stuff from the stations on the left and the right hand side. So we've got our large small block containers, all with buttons on them. The top buttons don't actually do anything, but the bottom ones are going to be how we're going to connect it up to the rail track below the train. So we look down there, there's our connector, and of course that connects up to everything and goes across over to there. They are not naturally set up by default to be sitting on top of the connectors, so you will have to reverse this thing up if you want to play around with it. And of course each of the trailers are connected up by a merge block, and the merge blocks are a little bit wonky because they are sitting on rotors to allow them to move around. So there is a change in the tracks are not straight, go uphill, turn left and right, they can bend around, and well, it stops you from damaging the vehicle. Moving across to this, here's your hydrogen tanks, again with the same button setup. Over to this one, we've got some more large cargo containers, and at the front and at the back there, we've got our cab to actually drive it around. We've got a couple of air vents on the side there, not too sure what they'll be for because there is no doorways to actually make it airtight on the inside, but here we go. On the left hand side, we've got two cockpits to drive this thing around. both of these can actually drive the train. You can come around towards the back there, there's a bunch of auction tanks with some lovely yellow and black blocks just going all the way along the bottom. And there's our reactors to actually power this train with a battery in the background. That's going to be the same for the one on the opposite side. And there we are. And of course, behind this train, we then got a passenger train, where it's just a bunch of seats lining the way. We've got a fighter cockpit at the front to drive it around. So landing myself down, one hell of a lot of passenger seats, a reactor to power this thing. Unfortunately, we can't go carriage to carriage because they have been blocked off by some steel blocks to allow it to wobble around, which is unfortunate. It's not like Ronnie Doo's double-decker train world, which is absolutely horrendous on performance. It uses, it pushed my system over 23 gigs of RAM. Yes, I was going to do a video on that, but unfortunately I could not get a stable 30 frames in it. And I believe I've got low hydrogen, so I am going to have to just drop down here. And it's basically going to be the same as the ones we just saw. Anyway, scooting back over here, drop myself down before I run out of hydrogen, because it is a survival world. Moving across over to this, we've got a fancy little button panel, where it has to say, bring the 3D camera back over, and bring it over to the track, like so. Now actually hit the button, 3D camera once again, we see the track will change, so now it allows the transport train to move from both the stations. Pressing it again, don't want to do that, pressing that. And I'll go back, and now the passenger train can do what I just said. What we're going to do is start off with the transport train, and we're going to go all the way to the left. So pressing out once again, coming all the way over to the front of this. Here we go, hiding the HUD, we don't need that. And I'm just going to get into the left-hand cockpit. So around here, walking across, by it looking like we could walk all the way up, we'll need to do a little jump, or even just use my jetpack to scoot inside there we go. We now get into this seat, we've got a few controls. Number 9 is going to be how we're going to connect up to the connectors on the track. And number 1 is going to be how we're going to disconnect the merge block, connecting this part to the first cargo trailer. Anyway, without further ado, time to move this thing along, and in first person view, this is what it looks like. It is very, very janky when we're moving this around. It feels like you're tipping over. Like when I'm driving this around, it feels like I'm going to tip over to the left, but it is perfectly fine, it's perfectly safe, and it does work very, very well as long as you don't slam on the brakes. Now, when I was testing this out, I did slam on the brakes at 100 meters per second, and I, for some odd reason, blew up half the train, but I landed on my roof on the track perfectly. Just show a screenshot of that because I didn't manage to record it. But anyway, we're just chugging along at 27 meters per second. It's very safe, very sturdy, and that's simply what it looks like as it travels along. But anyway, as we were to come into this tunnel, what we're going to find is a intermittent platform. This is going to be your mining area that does come with another vehicle. Now you will have to be very careful with that vehicle because, wow, it's very easy to fall down a massive hole. So I'm going to start to slow down here because during my testing, this is where I had my accident and flipped the vehicle all the way over. So very careful now. And we should be able to hide the HUD, and you might be able to make out lights in the distance or where the platform is sitting. And here we go, we're now approaching the station. Some lovely lights along the top there. There's a platform on the left hand side. And just making sure we're going to come to a stop in time to make sure I can actually hop out. There's some more connectors in the floor to actually load up the train with all the goods to transport it back to the main station. And I think we'll try and do it like so. And that'll do quite nicely. So now hopping out of this, turning around, walking across over to this platform, there's the land vehicle that I was talking about, and this is what we're greeted with. So over here we've got some LCD screens, we can see we've got an all transport station, and there's the button to actually move it all the way across. Over here we can see our ore deposit, which is going to be down in that connector right there, and there's our little vehicle to drive around and go through this very ominous tunnel. We'll come back to that after we view this section right on the side. So we've got a bunch of cargo containers, there's a reactor to give it a bit of power, and here's a tiny little atmospheric powered vehicle for you to hover around and see what's going on. So we'll hop into here, put on the power, lift this up, this is all it is, just a tiny little thing that you can probably carry a very small cargo container with, nothing too heavy, or you can just go out and about and scout in that little tunnel right over there. But we're not going to do that, I'm going to turn off the power, hop into this land vehicle, I'm going to use this instead. Turning off the brakes, moving forwards, down we come. This is going to get exceptionally wonky because it's a gigantic hole ready for you to mine out with, say, a actual flying mining ship, all while doing it on foot with plenty of hydrogen bottles. So driving up to this section is a gigantic hole where, well, we're now going to start to fall down this, and it's going to get very trippy because you're not too sure which way is up, but this vehicle is very good at actually taking the fall. It should just bounce. There we go. Now we just roll all the way around and just fall down onto the ground. We did take a little bit of damage, but like I said, this thing is very sturdy, and now at the bottom of this giant hole. So all around this place is going to be all the different type of ore patches you need. One of the ones that I saw as we were falling was ice. That's basically all it is in this section. And here we are back at a train station. It feels a little bit more wonkier than when I was actually coming around here first of all. Not too sure what's going on there. But nevertheless, let's go back into this and move further to the left to our final destination before we have to move all the way to the right. So hopping into this, we now just drive this away. Don't even need to switch over the controls, just works straight off the bat. Now we can just drive all the way along. You might be able to make out the platform in a distance, because it's not too far away from where this is. But here's a massive hole, so do be careful you were to hop out of the train, because you're going to fall all the way down. Here we go, we're now leaving the hole. There's the ending platform. Want to bring up the HUD, so make sure you're not going too fast. There's some more wind turbines, and there's more solar panels, and another big base to go and take a look at. We're now going down the hill, so we've got to be a little bit more careful than usual. And here we are at the ending point. So bring this now to a stop. There we are. We now hop out of this, turn around, and now back onto the platform, hiding all of that. And here's another base. So looking around here, we should have a way to come down. There it is, the steps, all the way down and around. And now we see all the stuff down there. So we've got blaster H blocks, a bunch of conveyors. Then round to here, a bunch of reactors, large cargo containers. There's the solar panels, intended to make sure we know where to find the base. Walking past all of this. Here we are, we're now on the opposite side. So looking around to there, we then got some refineries, some modules attached onto it. Here's another large garage with another vehicle stored inside. And we've got to come into this doorway. Oop, there we go. We didn't see a doorway to go into the garage, so there's the big vehicle. This one, instead of being a hydrogen storage, it's a bunch of medium cargo containers, so you can store a nice bit of stuff inside, depending on world settings. We're coming back through here, closing that up, opening up this. This is our base, which is, well, very reminiscent of the first base that we saw. There's a medical bay, there's a programmable block, there's a large reactor, then into here is your O2HU generator with a tiny bit of ice already inside. Coming out of that, then moving around over to here, this is the final part of this side. So then got a bunch more LCD screens, and it's all the stuff about this station. There's another seat to sit in, control a few bits inside. And I believe that's pretty much it, this side of the station. So it's time for me to go back into the free camera, and then drop my character all the way down. In fact, I'm not actually going to drop the character down, because it will die. I'm just going to go over to here, drop down like that. Now it's time to head into this train. But first of all, before I forget, we need to swap the tracks over. Otherwise, I'm just going to do what I did when I first loaded up this world and fall straight off it. So there we go, that's now switched over. Now it's time for me to fly across over to this train, hop inside. But now we can just drive away. And it is going to take a little bit of time to get going on this side because we are a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier. And here we go. So yes, this one will not take as long as going all the way to the left because we do not have an intermittent stop. This is going to be straight to the very end. But as you can see, unlike the previous train, we are getting a hell of a lot of speed. So this thing is a bullet train. And well, this is where we're going to be very careful when braking. So in third person view, hiding the HUD, this is all it looks like. Just driving along there. It's very smooth, very stable, very safe. Unless of course you do something very reckless. And there is a station in the distance. So what I've got to do now is bring up the HUD. And we'll very, very carefully try to stop this thing. I'm going to put on the dampeners. Hopefully this can stop in time. I have a feeling I'm going to do what I did when I did my second test and just slam straight into the end and fly straight off it. Here we come all the way around. And there we go. That's what I was expecting to happen. So putting on my jetpack, moving away from there. And there is the poor train. So just going to ignore that and just come all the way around. So here we are at the very end. Once again, we've got a change in rail, where this one can come all the way across into a little station, do some maintenance work, and actually change it around, do some upgrading. But if we come further over to this part, we then see we've got ourselves a mining train, go and dig through a mountainside if that's what we want. I'm not too sure how useful this thing will be, because you will have to have a track in front of it to actually move all the way forwards, but it's there if you want to play around with it. Anyway, for this station, we're going to hop over to this part, walk all the way down like we did on the previous stations. Down we come. Then we can see a bunch of reactors, a bunch of large refineries, once again solar panels, and there's a bunch of conveyors, connector on top for a ship to come dock up to. And here we are. We don't get a platform to walk around, we've got to walk all the way around the actual main base before we can actually see that. There's the large cargo containers, walking all the way around these, and here is our platform, right next to some auction tanks. Well, we should have another garage, another control room, where there's the garage, but this time we've got no vehicle inside, very similar setup to the ones we just saw. Then coming to here, double door once again. And there we go. So there's a programmable block, there's an air vent, there's our medical bay, behind there's a large reactor, up to here, LCD screens once again telling us all the stuff about the base, and there's a seat to control everything if you want to do that. And with that, that's pretty much it for HullTec's Monorail Testworld. It's a lovely world to download and play around with if you do want to play around with some trains, but not have it being too demanding on your system. This whole map is very lightweight, there's no mods on here, so there's no additional downloads, and it's all been very well thought out to make sure there's no massive grids on here that take up a lot of performance. I think the biggest thing on here is 5,000 blocks, which is nothing compared to a lot of designs on the workshop. Yes, as for that is it for this world. There'll be a link to the description below to wish to download and play around yourself. I highly recommend you do. I'll be back with another video some point soon. Bye bye.